Okay, greetings and welcome back for the third lecture in our series on Kohelet, Wisdom in Pursuit of Wind. I'll encourage anyone who's able to come off Zoom. It's always great to see you and to get at least some facial reactions to some of what we're studying. And as always, you can contribute into the chat, and I'll take a look at the end of the lecture and answer as many questions as I can. We're progressing through the book. We're in our penultimate lecture. We're going to be covering chapters 5 to 9. I have a rather ambitious program for today. I'll see how much we get through. Anything we don't get through, I will push into the next lecture. Today's topic is the quiet life, the good life, the better life, and the afterlife. The afterlife is a topic that many of you wanted to explore. I told you we would be exploring this as well. Before we go further, I always like to review a little bit of what we've done and to pick up on some themes, not only for review, but also for expansion of what we did previously. And I want to start with the topic that we ended on, which was the concept of power. I mentioned last time that King Solomon is uniquely positioned to talk to us about power because he is a person who experienced it firsthand. He was the king of Israel, and he understood kings, and he understood power. And as we're entering into the high holidays, obviously this is in preparation for Sukkot, but as we enter the high holidays, it's been a theme for many, many years, especially among rabbis in their high holiday sermons, that so much of the machzor, so much of the high holiday literature is based on the idea of God as king. It is certainly the leitmotif of the high holiday services, and yet it is very, very difficult for us to understand what it means to live in an absolute monarchy, as was experienced by our ancestors, was experienced in the ancient world, and Chazal understood as well. Living in democracies, we do not understand really what kingship means, and it is good to familiarize ourselves with this, and at least to get into the mindset. And Shlomo is very, very helpful because he himself is a king and understands how kings work, which means he has a bit of an insight into how God works, because God is envisioned, as I said, in the Machzor and in the Bible. Very little in the Torah itself, but in the rest of the Bible as a king. And this will give us a bit of an insight going into high holidays of what kingship is like and what it means to live under a king. And so, this we did not do last time. As I said, we're doing chapters 5 through 9. I'm skipping ahead to chapter 8 in order to pick up on this theme. And he says here, Ani pi melech shmor. I say, Kohelet says, obey the king's order, in that it is an oath of God. This, I think, he means in two senses. In oath of God, number one, one takes an oath to God to obey the king. That is what one does. That is part of the honor that we owe a king. We tell God that we will obey the king. And the second meaning of this phrase is that obeying a king is like obeying God. Obeying a king is like taking an oath to God. It is making yourself subservient to a ruler, and he means both. This concept of an oath, we're going to take up maybe about 20 minutes, half an hour. We're going to talk about the idea of an oath, so I'm just going to bookmark that until we get to the idea of oath. But let's dive into Kohelet's thoughts on obeying a king. He says, leave his presence. The implication here is when one is dismissed from a king, or where the king is angry or displeased or does something that you do not like. Kohelet's advice is don't get into it with him. Don't fight, just go. And he explains this. Do not take a stance concerning an evil matter, for he can do anything he pleases. Kohelet, King Solomon, says that there are going to be times when you do not like what the king does. And this is why we, as citizens in a democracy, do not understand kingship. When we don't like what the government does, we protest. We vote against the government. We vote the government out. All of us can just look at what's going on in Israel, what's going on in the United States, what's going on here in Canada. That's what we do as citizens of a democratic country, a democratic republic. Not so with a king. Kohelet says a king does whatever he wants. So there's no use fighting with him. There's no use getting into it with him because he's going to win. A king can do whatever he pleases. Obviously, King Shlomo is a king. He knows is about himself. He knows if somebody argues with him, he's going to sit there and he'll nod politely, and then he will do whatever he wants. And Shlomo's observation here is important for us in dealing with God as well. God acts as God wants. And this is going to come up as a theme in Kohelet later on today when we talk about schar v'onish, reward and punishment. We expect God to work by certain rules. We expect if we do something, then God is going to act in a certain way. And Shlomo says that is not the case with kings. I know this. I'm a king myself. Sometimes in a better mood, sometimes I'm in a worse mood. Sometimes I follow my laws, sometimes I bend them a little bit. And I can do that because I'm an arbitrary ruler, and God works that way as well. And this explains, as we'll see a little later, why God's actions on earth often seem arbitrary. We look at what God does, and we can say, how can God do this, right? How can God make this happen? This doesn't make any sense. And the answer is, it doesn't have to make sense. Trust me, Shlomo says. I'm a king. I do whatever I want, and God does too. It is a humbling thing. It is something that is not readily available to us, but that is how kings work. Inasmuch as a king's command is authoritative, and no one can say to him, "What are you doing?" You can't. The king has ultimate authority, and what are you going to say? Like, God, like, what are you doing? Right? It's good to be the king, as Mel Brooks said. It's good to be God. One who obeys orders will not suffer from a dangerous situation. Best thing to do, just do what you're told. That's what Shlomo Melech says. That is the best advice for a subject, and that is good advice for us as well as we conduct our lives. One who obeys orders will not suffer from a dangerous situation. A wise man, however, now here we get back to Chokhmah, will bear in mind that there is a time of judgment, for there is a time for every experience and judgment. Ki l'chol chefetz yesh et. This reminds us of what we studied last week. L'chol zman va'et, reference back to chapter 3. To everything there is a time. Et umishpat, ki ra'at hadam rabba alav. For there's a time for every experience and judgment when the evil of man will overwhelm him. But also remember, and now here we're talking about an earthly king and not about God, that when it comes to mortals, life is cyclical. So you know what? If you're really upset with the king, wait it out. Have patience. A wise man will know that, yes, there is a negative. I've talked to you about this, Kohelet says in the 3rd chapter. The negative of the cyclical nature of life is that everything seems to be, as we say in philosophy, one damn thing after another. Everything seems to be repetitive. However, Kohelet says there is an upside, and the upside is that it will end. This too shall pass. Have patience, he says, wait it out. The mortal king is mortal. Okay, and if you have patience and as you endure the things, don't worry, because if he's an evil king, eventually he'll be killed, he'll be deposed, he will die, and if you wait it out, you'll be fine. Another observation on this here, as I told you last time, and in my first lecture as well, Kohelet is wisdom of the wealthy. Kohelet associates wealth and wisdom together. And of course, it is in the interest of the establishment to tell people, maintain your station keep your place. This is a theme Kohelet has over and over again. A little difficult for us to stomach in a democratic society, but Kohelet does say, keep your place, don't push back on society, and accept the reality of life. And although that's difficult for us politically, it is good for us theologically. And Kohelet makes that connection. And that is to accept God's world as it is. We are not going to change it. We haven't changed it since the dawn of humanity. We're never going to change it. We accept God's world as it is. The next theme we talked about last time, which is a theme throughout Kohelet, is the idea of enjoying your wealth. As I said, Kohelet does value wealth and connects wealth and wisdom. Claude, let me just get through this, and then I'll get to you. He does value wealth and wisdom together, and he tells us to enjoy our wealth. And as I said, we talked about it last time, but I do want to expand upon it as Kohelet does here. And here's what he says. Yesh ra'a chola ra'iti tachat hashamesh. There is a great evil I've observed under the sun, riches hoarded by their owner to his misfortune, in that these riches are lost in some unlucky venture, and if he begets a son, he has nothing in hand. Kohelet says, one of the reasons that you should enjoy your wealth is because life is short and life is unpredictable. Enjoy your wealth when you have it, because you never know. Business is good today, but tomorrow you might get into some unlucky venture and lose all of your money. Do not wait to enjoy your riches. Enjoy them now. This is advice he has throughout the book. Take advantage of the time that God gives you to enjoy your stuff, and don't hoard. Don't hoard your wealth. You'll want to leave it to your kids if you do save it at all, but also be careful because your kids might squander it. So enjoy it while you can. Another grave evil is this: he must depart just as he came out of his mother's womb, so must he depart at last, naked as he came. He can take nothing of his wealth to carry with him. You're not taking it with you, Kohelet says here. Enjoy your wealth here. You're not going to be able to save up. Your wealth is going to do you no good in the next world, which we'll talk about shortly. So as might as you'll enjoy it now, you're not going to take it with you. So what is the good of his toiling for the wind? Why bother working so hard, right? Life involves a lot of work, Kohelet says, and you are meant to enjoy its fruits. Uh, Besides, all his days he eats in darkness, and much vexation and grief and anger. Kohelet talks about a miser here, right? Somebody who sits and hoards his wealth, and we know people like this. He sits in the dark, right? He won't even spend money on in that time candlelight, lamplight, oil for lights. Today it's people who have tremendous amount of wealth, but they won't even keep the lights on in their house because they're afraid of wasting electricity. We all know people like this. And Kohelet says, don't be like that. You have money, use the money. There's no use saving all of your money. You need to enjoy it while you can. Only this I have found, and this is the review part, is a real good, that one should eat and drink and get pleasure with all the gains he made under the sun during the numbered days of life that God had given him. That is Kohelet's advice to us. Our wealth, our enjoyment from life that we have here on earth is real. It is not, as Christian philosophers believe, an illusion, right? This is not an aesthetic ideal. You're supposed to enjoy all of the wealth that God gives you. And he says this, right? Ki hu chelko, for that is his portion. I told you last time that the word hevel is a leitvort, is a word, a theme word throughout the book, and so is chelek, your portion. And Kohelet talks over and over again about your portion, and what he means is, he explains it here, your portion is that reward that God has given you for everything that you have done. So enjoy it. That is your reward. Notice he does not talk about reward in the next world. That does not occupy him. If he thinks about reward, it is only in this world. And also, whenever a man is given riches and property by God, right, he assumes that this is from the divine, right? He's a deep believer. Is also permitted by him to enjoy them and take his portion. God giving us reward, God giving us wealth. This is not a test. Okay, this is God, not God testing us. I'm giving you money. Let's see if you can not spend it. Let's see if you can live a life of poverty again, like in the Christian ideal. No such ideal with Kohelet, right? It's insulting to God almost not to spend your money, not to enjoy your money. This was given to you by God in order to reward you for what you have done. For such a man will not brood much over the days of his life. Yeah, you'll be happy. You'll enjoy your life because you're spending your money, because God keeps him busy enjoying himself. We're going to come back to that verse in a second because there's a lot there. Let me just sum up this section. I'll get to Claudette's question. Let's just sum up this section because this paragraph here from Kohelet explains a part of Pirkei Avot, which I think is often misinterpreted. Pirkei Avot, Masechet Avot, is the natural continuation in Chazal, in the Mishnah, of the wisdom literature. For those of you who were with me for the wisdom series, and even for those of you who weren't, who were here for the Kohelet series, the wisdom books of the Bible, their natural continuation is in Pirkei Avot, and there are many things in Pirkei Avot which can be traced back to Kohelet and to other of Shlomo's wisdom in the Tanakh. And here is a very famously quoted Mishnah from Pirkei Avot. Ben Zoma Omer Ezu Ashir Hasameach Bechelko. Ben Zoma said, "Who is rich? One who rejoices in his portion." Show of hands if you've heard this quoted. Yeah, right. We've all heard it quoted. But when I've heard it quoted, it is interpreted as who is the happy person? Somebody who's happy with whatever they have, right? So a poor person should be happy with having little. You should, whatever you have, be happy with what you have. That is a happy person. I do not think that is the meaning of this Mishnah. And even take a look at the proof text that the Mishnah uses. It quotes from Tehillim. We know some of the Tehillim are also wisdom psalms, right? Yagia kapecha ki tochal ashrecha v'tov lach. You shall enjoy the fruits of your labors. You shall be happy and you shall prosper. You shall be happy in this world. You shall prosper in the world to come. Okay, that's what Chazal say. But the psalm here, right, says that what it means to enjoy your portion is to take advantage of the fruits of your labor. That's what it means. The emphasis here is not chelko, right? Is not whatever size your portion is, but hasameach bechelko, to make sure, okay, that your portion is something that you enjoy. The emphasis here is on the enjoyment. The person who is rich is somebody who spends their money, who is happy with their portion, right? Who uses their portion to give them pleasure. That's what the Mishnah means, I think, and that's what Kohelet says. And you'll see here, and again, we're going to talk about it shortly. The Mishnah here introduces the concept of the world to come, but that does not exist in Kohelet, as we will see shortly. Let me just pause for a second. Claudette, you had a question before we move forward?
Yeah, can we go back to the obeying the king? When we were there, I was a bit uncomfortable with it because what about if we have an immoral king and we are told in the Tanakh to be moral, just, do just, and if we have a king that is not being just, should we not act to, you know, for instance, we had slavery. We all know what happened to slavery. Somebody had to act to get rid of it in spite of government. So I'm very uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. So I'll address this briefly, then we can return to it at the end if you wish. But the Tanakh has nothing to say about liberal democracies. Okay. And certainly in a liberal democracy, we should act against immoral leadership. And we have a mechanism to do so, right? It's called voting, it's called protest. And we absolutely should do that in a liberal democracy. This is not when it comes.
Rabbi, doesn't the Tanakh ask for justice?
It does, but we do justice when we can. When it comes to absolute rulers, we have no ability. We have no ability to do anything. Kohelet says they can act as they wish, and we are under their thumb. That's his advice to us. We can return to it at the end. I'll bookmark it. I know it's uncomfortable, but that is the reality of the world that he lived in. We live in a different world. I want to return to verse 19. Take a look at verse 19. Ki Elohim maneh b'simchat libo. For such a man will not brood much over the days of his life, because God keeps him busy enjoying himself. I want to expand on this and tell you what I think Kohelet means. I believe what Kohelet is referring to here is something that is called the power of distraction. I was first familiarized with this with an interview I saw many, many years ago when he was still in more favor with Woody Allen. And the interviewer said to Woody Allen, "You know, you are such an atheist. You are such a non-believer." The interviewer said to Woody Allen, "Is there anything in the world that you believe in?" And Woody Allen said, "Yes, I believe in the power of distraction." And as I remember the quote, I've not been able to find it, but I do remember it well. He said, "I believe that in this world of tears, we can be distracted for a moment by a good movie or a good book that can take us out of our daily misery and distract us for a little bit." And that had a great impact on me. This idea that the purpose of literature and entertainment is to take us out of a life which is often filled with misery and pain. But distraction is real. You can be distracted for a while from the daily pain of life. I'm sitting here in my office here. I run a school. And just yesterday, a teacher came in, a brand new teacher we have here, and she asked, "Do you have any advice for me as a new teacher?" And that was my advice to her, that the most beautiful thing that you can do as a teacher is to create a classroom that's like a movie theater, where you shut the door and you create a world of Torah. And for the duration of your class, all that you're thinking about is the distraction of the joy of learning Torah, and the rest of the world disappears. I feel this a little bit today. Every time I look forward, to our learning together, and not just for the learning, but for the distraction, for the time we're together. We're forgetting all about the other issues and problems. We all have our pekalach in life, but for the time that we're together and we're learning, we're involved in the joy of Torah, and we're distracted. The poet T.S. Eliot, I spoke of Woody Allen, I'm speaking of T.S. Eliot. These are also not a favorite personality, a tremendous anti-Semite. But in one of his poems, he talked about distracted from distraction by distraction. Where he talked about that maybe this can go too far, that our lives can be so obsessed with distraction that we never face life itself. And certainly we now know, when we see people in the constant state of distraction, with their phones, watching TV, with all forms of technology, video games and such, that you wonder if people are living at all, or if they're just in a constant state of distraction, God forbid, with drugs and alcohol as well. Kohelet, like all wisdom literature, believes in the power of moderation, and we should do things in moderation. So certainly distraction should be something done in moderation, but he does believe it is something real, and we should engage in it. And God keeps us busy with this. God gives us enough distractions in our life. Our money is a distraction. Pleasure is a distraction. Entertainment is a distraction to distract us from the fact that life is often sad and difficult. That is his advice to us. Okay, so that is a little expansion of what we talked about last time. The topic today said is the quiet life. So I want to begin talking about the quiet life by talking about the power of words. The best passage in the Bible, I believe, to talk about the power of words is the story of Jacob stealing the blessing from his brother Esau. When Jacob goes to when Esau goes to Isaac, you'll recall from the story, Jacob dresses up as his brother. He goes to his father Isaac. Isaac gives him the blessing of being the favored son. And then he slips out, and Esau comes back, and Isaac is shocked because he's just blessed who he thought was Esau, and Esau is now standing in front of him, and Isaac cannot believe that Jacob has stolen the blessing that was intended for Esau. That's the story. I imagine we're all familiar with it. And then the Torah says, this is in Bereshit, "V'cherad Yitzchak charada gdola ad me'od, v'avarchehu gam baruch yeh." Isaac was seized with a very violent trembling. He was very, very upset by what had just happened, that that Jacob had stolen the blessing. And Isaac says, "But I blessed him, and now he must remain blessed." And I remember reading this as a child, as a teenager, and I was shocked. Like, the blessing was clearly stolen. The blessing was clearly gained through guile. Why doesn't Isaac just say, "Cancel that"? Okay, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to bless him. The blessing was meant for you. Not only that, right? I'm gonna curse him because he did something terrible. He stole it from you. But that's not what Isaac says. Isaac says, "I blessed him, and now he must remain blessed." כששמע עשיו את דברי אביו, ויצעק צעקה גדולה ומרה עד מאוד. When Esav heard his father's words, he burst into wild and bitter sobbing, and he said to his father, "Bless me too, father." By the way, I get very emotional. I get all teary every time I read this. To me, these are among the most painful words in all of the Torah. The unloved son begging his father for a blessing, and saying, "Bless me too, father. Don't you have anything left for me?" But he answered, "Your brother came with guile and took away your blessing." Isaac says, "Nothing I can do about it. I already blessed your brother." Why is this the case? This doesn't make any sense.
Isn't
Uh,
the word gum ani, isn't the use of ani, which is subjective, when he means oti? Do you have an explanation for that?
uh,
Baracheni gum ani.
so well, he says, "Bless me too. Bless me also."
But
Barcheni
he should say,
Gani.
but he should say oti, not ani.
I don't think that's an issue in biblical Hebrew to say ani. You could say oti, but I don't think ani is a problem in biblical Hebrew to say. I'll meditate on that, but I don't think it's a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, so the answer is that words have real power. Words have actual power. That is what this passage is telling us. Isaac says, "Once a word has been spoken, it can't be taken back." That is the power of language. I've given him a blessing that remains. That's difficult for us to understand with blessings. But really, when you think about the inverse, it's not hard to understand. If somebody says something nasty to you, you never forget it. There is no way of taking back a curse. Uh, the phrase "sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me." I learned that rhyme as a child. Nothing makes less sense. Bones mend, bones heal, bones can be reset, but words that are spoken to you, an insult, a nasty thing that was said to you as a child, will never heal. You will remember that forever. Very few people into adulthood remember broken legs and arms that have long healed. But people remember, right? That person, that friend, that teacher, that enemy, that kid who said something to you. And as adults, we do too. Words have tremendous, tremendous power. And once they're spoken, they cannot be taken back. That's true of blessings, it's true of curses, it's true of all words. So that's first stated in Genesis. And it is a theme in Kohelet and in the wisdom literature as well. Al tevahel al picha v'libcha al yemaher lotzi davar lifnei ha'elohim. Keep your mouth from being rash, and let not your throat be quick to bring forth speech before God. For God is in heaven and you are on earth. That is why your words should be few. Do not take the power of words lightly. The power of speech is divine speech. You have power over other people. What you say has tremendous power, and we know this from oaths. I showed you that in the beginning, and now we'll return to this. The power of an oath shows you divine power. Something that you say has the force of the divine. It can make things. Blessing someone has power, and cursing someone has power. It has divine power. It is power that we have. Think about it. The only power we have over God, okay, is our speech. Blasphemy, right? Blasphemy is the only power that we have over God, our ability to curse God or to curse in God's name. Okay, God can control everything, but he can't control what we say. Okay, and once we say something, we have brought a reality into the world. Okay, and we have used divine power. We must use it. We must use it carefully. And so, when you make a vow to God, don't delay to fulfill it, for he has no pleasure in fools. What you vow, fulfill. If you say something, you better follow through with it, because God's going to hold you to it. God is very jealous of our words because he can't control them. Okay, so better not to vow at all than to vow and not fulfill. Watch what you say. Okay, better not talk at all. Don't let your mouth bring you into disfavor, and don't plead before the messenger it was an error. Don't go back and say, "Oh, no, 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 I didn't mean to say that." You can't do it. Once you've said it, it is said, just like with Isaac. Okay, you can't take it back. So be very careful about everything that comes out of your mouth. But fear God, right? Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, else God may be angered by your talk and destroy your possessions. God may punish you for what you have done because he doesn't like what you have said. Notice, he can't control it, and God cannot control what you have brought into the world. If you have committed a terrible desecration, like cursing God, like cursing another person, you've brought a great evil into the world. God can punish you for it, but he can't take it back. The impact that you have had on others, the impact that you've had on society by cursing God, that is something you can't take back. He can punish you, but he can't control you. For much dreaming leads to futility and to superfluous talk. Don't be somebody who is constantly in a stream of consciousness and just talking and talking and talking. Okay, daydreaming and just saying, I'm just going to tell you what's on my mind. Be very careful about what you say. And as I said to you earlier, much of what we find in Kohelet in the wisdom literature in general appears in a different form in Pirkei Avot. And one of my favorite sayings from Rabbi Akiva Omer, Siyag lechokhma shtika. Rabbi Akiva said, a fence to wisdom is silence. And since we're talking about wisdom literature, I love Rabbi Akiva's general pronouncement about wisdom. I want you to know I say this line to myself every single day. I add this to my tefillot. And I say it to myself often during the day. I don't listen to it enough, but I do say it to myself. I teach it to my children. I teach it to my students. Better not to talk at all. A fence to wisdom is silence. Okay. More on conversation, which will lead us into the next topic. כי יש דברים הרבה מרבים הבל, מה יותר לאדם. Often, much talk means much futility. The more oftentimes, the more you talk, the more you realize that things are absurd. I said in a previous lecture that, and one of you pointed this out to me very, very well, and I thank you. Forgive me, I forget B'Shem Omro who said it. Kohelet is wisdom, but he is not philosophy. Kohelet is very practical about wisdom. What he's telling us about has real practical implications. Philosophy is speculative. Philosophy believes in lots of talk. Socrates spent his life talking and talking and talking, and he believed that was a good thing. All of Plato's works are dialogical. All of Plato's works are about conversations. In fact, in Plato's works, often the philosophers, the interlocutors, some of these off mute. Can just some of these
What?
Enjoy.
go on mute. I'm just getting some interference. Socrates, like in the beginning of the Republic, often talks to people who he thinks are foolish, but that's okay. Socrates thinks a conversation is a good thing, and talking and talking and talking is a good thing, and truth often emerges from lots of conversation. Not so Kohelet, right? He says talking too much is not going to get you anywhere. Why? כי מי יודע מה טוב לאדם בחיים? Who can possibly know what is best for man to do in life? And that is the opposite, once again, of philosophy. The reason why Plato and Socrates and all the philosophers in Plato's dialogues are always talking is because they are trying to figure out this very question: what is best for a man to do in life? What course of life is best? That is the key question of philosophy. Plato puts that out as the key question of philosophy, figuring out what is the good life. And Kohelet says, don't bother. Who could possibly know what the good life is? We will never figure out the good life. So Kohelet here dismisses two things that will become important in Western philosophy. He dismisses the idea of the possibility of knowing the good life, and he dismisses the way the philosophy tells us to get to the good life, which is by talking and talking and talking. Kohelet is, as I said, the closest we have to philosophy, but it is not philosophy. Kohelet says we cannot possibly know the good. What is the good life? Now, this is in chapter 6, as you say. The trouble is, in chapter 7, Kohelet gives us all sorts of advice as to how to live our lives. Here he says, who can possibly know what course of life is best? And then in chapter 7, he says, oh, I'm actually going to give you a lot of advice on how to live your lives. This very much bothered Chazal. Our sages were bothered by these contradictions in the book of Kohelet, and there's a passage in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. ביקשו חכמים לגנוז ספר קהלת מפני שדבריו סותרים זה את זה. The sages sought to suppress the book of Ecclesiastes, to declare it apocryphal, to remove it from the Jewish canon. Why? Because its statements contradict each other. Kohelet is filled with contradictions, and because of this, the Gemara says, the sages wanted to exclude it from the Hebrew Bible because the Bible should not contain contradictions. Now, the fact that Kohelet did make it into the Jewish canon means that Chazal did feel that the contradictions in Kohelet could be reconciled, and I would like to contribute to that by reconciling this contradiction for you in the way that I read it. My reading is that while Kohelet says that we cannot possibly know what is the good life in an absolute sense, we can know what is the better life. And that's what I believe that Kohelet is offering us. He's not saying, I know what the good life is. We do not know. That is a piece of divine wisdom that, as we've talked about before, is inaccessible to humanity. But that doesn't mean that everything is up for grabs. We can figure out the better life. We can figure out better things to do in life. And the fact, we often say that that the perfect is the enemy of the good.
You froze.
Says, let's not miss out on the better. There are better choices to make in life, and that's what he talks about in the next chapter, chapter 7. I picked only a few pieces of advice. You can go afterwards and read all of them for yourself. Let's just use a few as an example because I think they're delightful. Here's the first piece of advice. Tov shemen mi shemen tov. Works much better in Hebrew than in English. Hebrew has some beautiful. We have a poet with us here. Gershon, hopefully you appreciate the poetic resonance here, which is lost in the English. A good name is better than fragrant oil. Tov shem mi shemen tov. Yom hamavet mi yom hivaldo. And the day of death is better than the day of birth. I point out to you here the phrase in Hebrew for better is tov mi. Kohelet's advice for the better life. A good name is better than fragrant oil. The best thing you can do in life is establish a good name for yourself. Life. You just wave if you can hear me. I got a message that
You're going in and out.
I'm going in and out.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, somebody come off mute if I go in and out again. Tov, a good name is better than fragrant oil. The best thing that you can do is establish a good name, because if things go badly for you in business and life and such, you can always rely on the fact that you have a good name. The other thing about fragrant oil, oil here is really reference to perfume. Oil was used in the ancient world to perfume things, and the message here is that perfume cannot mask a true stench. If you are really a bad person, it will come out in the end. Have a good name. Be a good person, because you're not going to be able to mask your bad deeds. And people often use money as a way of covering up the stench of bad deeds. That is not what Kohelet thinks that you should use your money for. You should use your money for your enjoyment. But you can't use money to cover up the fact that you're not a good person. You need to be a decent person. And Kohelet does connect good behavior with a good life, with a better life. And then something that seems a little morbid: the day of death is better than the day of birth. And yet that is the Jewish idea. We as Jews celebrate yortzites, not births. I told you a while ago that the only birthday in all of Tanakh is Pharaoh's birthday. The idea of celebrating a birthday is a non-Jewish idea. The only person in all of the Bible who celebrates a birthday is a non-Jew, is Pharaoh. Jews commemorate Yortzites, the day of death. Why do we commemorate the day of death? Because death represents accomplishment, what we have accomplished here on earth, and accomplishment is something that we can celebrate and should celebrate. Tov lelechet el beit evel milechet el beit mishteh. Better to go to the house of mourning than the house of feasting, for that is the end of every man, and the living one should take it to heart. Now, this seems to contradict, once again, we say Kohelet filled with contradictions. This seems to conflict with Kohelet's suggestion that we enjoy our lives. But remember, he is giving us life advice on the better life. Certainly, if you have a party to go to, you should go to the party. You should certainly enjoy yourself. But if you have a choice, if you can either go to a celebration or go to a Shiva house, Kohelet says the better choice is to go to a Shiva house. That is a better choice. Because that's how everybody ends, and it is good to remind yourself of that. Don't deny yourself going to a party, but it is better to familiarize yourself with the human condition than to spend your life all in partying. Again, it's not an absolute, right? It is a relative. Tov lishmoa garat chacham me'ish shomea shir ksilim. Better to listen to a wise man's reproof than the praise of fools. The idea of reproof, the idea of listening to people reproving you is a big theme in the wisdom literature. Spending your life just with sycophants, just people who are praising you all the time, is not going to give you a better life. Better to listen to people who put you on the right path. The entire theme of the book of Mishlei, of the book of Proverbs, Solomon's great book of Proverbs, is to listen to Musar, to listen to people reprimanding you. He says that's how parents teach their children, and we should always be open to reproof. We should always be open to criticism from others, as long as it's coming from a wise person. And he says, "Tov achrit davar mereshito." The end of the matter is better than the beginning of the matter. Just like death is better than life. Once one has accomplished something, that is better than setting out, trying to accomplish something. And as we talked about before, patience. Better a patient spirit than a haughty person. Remember that everything that goes around comes around. We now come to my favorite verse in all of Kohelet. I don't know if it's yours, but it's mine. Al tomar mehaya shehayamim harishonim hayu tovim me'ele. Do not say, how has it happened that former times were better than these? Kilo mechochma sha'alta etzeh. It's not wise of you to ask this. This is my favorite verse in the entire Kohelet. I'll tell you why. So Kohelet says, do not say, oh, the good old days. Do not be reminiscent of, oh, it used to be so much better. We know that we all do this. Again, I'm teaching in the school, right? And every year, some teacher will walk into my class and say, this is the worst class ever. My students used to be so bright. My students used to be so strong, right? What's happening to students today? What's happening to society today? We all do this. Why do I love this? Because Kohelet wrote this 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago, people were saying, oh, right, but 4,000 years ago, those were the good old days, right? But now everything has gone to pot. 3,000 years ago, people were reminiscing about the good old days, and Kohelet was saying, do not say that. Lo mechachma shalta. That's not a wise thing to say. There was a book that was published. Yes. There was a book published many years ago called "The Future and Its Enemies." The Growing Conflict Over Creativity, Enterprise, and Progress by Virginia Postrel. And in this book, The Future and Its Enemies, the author sought to divide people into two categories. She said, generally people are divided into people who are conservative and liberal, right wing, left wing. We all have ways to divide people into two categories politically. And she said, I divide people into people who are about the future and people who are enemies of the future. They're the people who believe in progress, that things are getting better, right? And then there are people who think that things are getting worse. That's what Virginia Prostrel said in this book. That you're either somebody who believes that things are getting better, or you believe that things are getting worse. And certainly in the Jewish tradition, we do have the idea that things are getting worse. There's a famous Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rava bar Zimuna. Rabbi Zera said that Rava bar Zimuna said, if the earlier generations are characterized as sons of angels, if earlier people were called sons of angels, we are the sons of men. And if earlier generations are characterized as sons of men, we are akin to donkeys. This is called in rabbinic parlance Yeridat Hadorot, the idea that the generations are descending, that things are getting worse. Humanity were once like children of angels, then they became children of men, and today we are just like animals. Every generation, things get worse and worse and worse. This is called Yeridat Hadorot. The generations are getting worse. Exactly the opposite of what Virginia Postrel said in her book, The Future and Its Enemies. This is a very traditionalist view. It's very, very popular in the yeshiva world, this idea that things are getting worse and worse and worse. Virginia Postrel, who is a libertarian thinker, thinks that the world is getting better and better and better. She is a progressive. Thinks the world is getting better. Kohelet is neither. That's the beauty of Kohelet. As I said, Kohelet believes that the world is a circle. The world is not progressing. The world is not getting worse. It is exactly the same as it ever was. That's why, Claudette, don't try to change things. Kohelet says things do not change. Everything just stays the same. I'm not saying it. This is what Kohelet is suggesting to us. And there is a positive, there's a negative to it. But this is his suggestion. As I said, I didn't think we would get through everything today. Let's go a little further with another idea in Kohelet as we progress through this chapter. We've touched several times on this idea of reward and punishment, schar v'onesh, and Kohelet has a very, very interesting take on it. For those of you who were with us in the Wisdom series, we spoke about two different views. One is the view, which we see in the book of Mishlei, for instance, that the world operates in a strict sense of justice. The good are rewarded and the evil are punished. That is a very nice, neat idea of schar v'onesh, and many people believe that today, that there is a strict sense of reward and punishment that happens, and God takes care of that. Then there is the book of Job, which says that there is no reward and punishment in this world. Reward and punishment do not exist. Reward and punishment is something that we can enact as humans, but there is no divine reward and punishment in the world. Two opposite extremes. There is perfect schar v'onesh, there is perfect reward and punishment, or there is no reward and punishment. Kohelet has a very nuanced view that is different from those two poles, and he expresses it here. Asher chote oseh ra me'at umarich lo. The fact is, he says, that the sinner may do evil 100 times and his punishment still be delayed. We see that like evil people can keep doing evil and doing evil and doing evil, and we never see them get punished for it. People keep doing bad stuff and bad stuff. For although I am aware that it will be well with those who revere God since they revere him, and it will not be well with the scoundrel, and he will not live long because he does not revere God, there is hevel that occurs in the world. Sometimes an upright man is requited according to the conduct of the scoundrel, and sometimes the scoundrel is requited according to the conduct of the upright. I say, all that is havel. Listen carefully to what Kohelet is saying. Kohelet is saying, on the one hand, I believe, right? I believe that God rewards the good and punishes the wicked. Okay, he says that here explicitly, right? For although I am aware that it will be well with those who revere God, since they revere him, and it will not be well with the scoundrel, I believe that God rewards and punishes. But what I believe contradicts with what I see, right? Right? Here it occurs in the world. Sometimes an upright man is requited according to the conduct of the scoundrel. Sometimes good people are treated like scoundrels, and sometimes scoundrels are treated like good people. And he says, all that is havel. I told you that the word havel has many different connotations. And here I believe the best connotation, the best translation is all that is absurd. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what Kohelet says. What I believe and what I see do not make sense. Kohelet is in the end what we call an empirical thinker. Kohelet looks at empirical reality, and Kohelet says, I look at empirical reality and I see, right, there isn't schar v'onesh, it just doesn't exist. And yet, at the same time, in my rational mind, I believe that it should exist. The fact that there is a dissonance between what I know should be and what I see exists, all I can say about that is that we live in a world of the absurd. It does not make any sense. And yet he holds both things in his mind at the same time. He doesn't understand how to resolve that contradiction. He believes both. But at the same time, he believes that we live in a world of the absurd. We live in a world of hevel, and therefore we live in a world where we cannot resolve this contradiction. And with that, I will end and go into the chat and see if we have any questions that I could possibly answer. Does Shlomo give any indication that one should use one's wealth for charitable purposes? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. In Koel, he does suggest that we should use our wealth charitably because he believes that what goes around comes around. And one should be charitable, if for nothing else, then because you might one day need charity yourself. You might need this, and we need to observe ethics because there's a reason why ethical systems exist. And apart from the fact that it is a mitzvah, and he says we should do mitzvot, we should also be aware that the world is a place where the rich man can at one point find himself as a poor man. And yes, you need to make sure to be generous with your money because you might need someone else's charity at some point as well. So yes. Doing good to others can be a source of enjoyment. If it gives you enjoyment, sure. If giving to others brings you pleasure, there's no reason to exclude that from the list of things to do. Oh, beautiful. Susan Hornstein, by Achashverosh, an edict by the king cannot be retracted. Excellent. Yes. Other biblical kings, we see that once a king makes a decree that it can't be detracted. Excellent. Next time I give this lecture, I'll remember that. Thank you so much. I learned so much from these interactions. Exactly. Why couldn't King Ahasuerus just say, I learned new information. I thought that you should kill the Jews, and now I received new information. I'm retracting that decree, and don't kill the Jews. But King Ahasuerus does not say that, right, Susan? Right? He says, I can't retract my decree, right? The Mishpat HaMelech cannot be retracted. All I can do is give another decree that lets you defend yourself. And by the way, the same thing that Isaac says to Esav. He says, "I can't take away your brother's blessing, and I can't give you that blessing. The best I can do is give you another blessing, which will allow you to have some measure of success and happiness."
Actually,
Uh,
read a Dvar Torah about this coming week's parsha about what happens if Bnei Israel do teshuvah after Rosh Hashanah and after the rain has already been decreed, and that Hashem can't change the decree. Hashem just redistributes the rain so that it better matches what happened.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yes, there are certain things that's the idea of a decree, right? It's not a decree if it can be retracted. The idea of a decree is that it stands. And had Bilam cursed Israel, wouldn't he have done damage? Yes, yes, he would have done damage. There's nothing that you can do about it once words are spoken, they cannot be retracted. And with that, I will end my words here.
One quick,
And I look
one,
forward. Oh,
one
yes.
quick thought. Vows can be annulled.
Oh, so for sure, we have a whole Masechet Shavuot about the annulling of vows, and of course that is because of the power of words. Yes, there are systems and there are mechanisms, and we have it in the Torah as well, right? In Sefer Devarim. Right, what to do when somebody makes a vow? Who is when a woman makes a vow?
That's
While
got the
she is
5-second rule on it, though.
Yes, a little bit like that. A little bit like that as well. So for sure, we have mechanisms because in the legal system we need sometimes to annul vows and such. But the fact that it is such a difficult and messy business shows us that these are all legal mechanisms responding to the fact that we know that from a theological sense, once something has been said, right? It is not you cannot take it away in a cosmic sense, in a theological sense. Yes, we have a whole masechet how we handle it in a legal sense, right? But in a theological and in a cosmic sense, once something has been said, once something has been pronounced, we have created a reality in the world that is not easily undone. Okay, I wish you a good week, and we will see you, please God, for the lecture next week. Take care.